Hello, we'd like to welcome you to a digital resource to launch your board into Smart Governance webinar, presented to you today by Jim Rice, Managing Director and Senior Advisor of the Governance and Leadership Practice of Integrated Healthcare Strategies, a division of Gallagher Benefit Services, with co-host and founder of GovernWell, Larry Walker. My name is Robin, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. We would like to hear from you and include your voice in the conversation, so please ask questions using the question and answer panel on the right, and we will answer those at the end. Now, I would like to introduce our presenters. Jim Rice advises work on strategic governance, structures, and systems for high-performing, tax-exempt health sector organization and integrated care systems, visioning for health sector and not-for-profit organizations, and leadership development for physicians and medical groups. Larry Walker is the founder of GovernWell, a game-changing new product that is designed to help guide the process of transforming governance practices in a changing healthcare marketplace, population health management, volume-to-value transition, physician engagement, and more. Please welcome Larry and Jim.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Larry and I are delighted to spend a few moments with folks on this webinar. We're going to speak for approximately 30 minutes and then have an opportunity for some brief questions at the end. This will be recorded for future use and reference. One of the things that's motivated Larry and I to work together on developing some new resources to enhance the effectiveness of boards operating in the health sector, whether they are critical access hospitals, large academic medical centers, or large integrated healthcare systems. On slide 3, you'll see the kinds of pressures that we see our clients dealing with every day. These boards are having to deal with, as you see in the lower left-hand corner of this slide, value-based payments, pressures to be more cost-effective in their decision-making as they set a policy framework for their organizations, new calls for quality outcomes and patient safety and customer service excellence. There's mergers and alliances that are being formed to develop a cohesive and a coordinated set of services along the continuum of care. Increasing integration with physicians adds complexity about how to govern the physician enterprise. Of course, we continue to have large capital investments into electronic medical records or electronic health records and new types of facilities. And the journey into population health management is also a challenge. As we worry about these, we've seen that the pressures have exacerbated significantly over the last 3 years. More regulatory oversight is being pressured on us from the Internal Revenue Service, the Office of Inspector General, the Department of Justice, whistleblowers, fraud and abuse claims, RAC audits. All of these combined together for the boards that we're working with to press them into having more decision-making that's got transparency and accountability and higher speed, more inclusiveness with their diverse stakeholders, resilience as they develop new policies, designing and building and operating and governing a continuum of care that's much broader than they've had in the past, which brings about the need for new partners, more evidence and competency-based governance. All of these are adding challenges to the boards. As a result, we've started working with Larry Walker and other governance advisors across the country to develop some new tools, some new resources. On slide 4, we're illustrating 5 documents that we've just published on our web portal, which looks at governance innovation. On the left, you'll see the first of these is to look at collaborative governance. There's another resource guide that we've established which is looking at competency-based governance and generative governance and intentional governance, and also transformational governance. In addition to those 5 guides to help boards think differently about their roles, we've also turned outside the United States to learn how does the board work extend itself and enhance its effectiveness in Canada, in the National Health Service of England, and we've even turned to look at good practices for nonprofit credit unions as another set of resources that are available for boards to deal with these challenges. All of this work has allowed us to become very much familiar with the work that Larry Walker and his team has developed over the last couple of years, which is now distilled into a resource that we want to share with you today and will be the focus of this brief webinar. The motivation that we see is the complexity of decision-making. Boards want more information. And so Larry and his team have developed some exciting materials. And so, Larry, I'd like to turn to you now and see if you could, in a few words, describe what this new program that you've developed, which is called GovernWell, why was it developed and how might it be beneficial? On the screen 6, we also see one of your clients, a collaborator, in looking at how to shape this from the Mayo Clinic. Larry, thank you for joining us on this webinar. What was going through your work with clients and your team that caused you to develop GovernWell?
Thanks, Jim. As I've worked with boards and trustees across the country over the last quarter century, one of the things that continually strikes me is that many boards simply don't know what they need to know in order to function at the very highest level of governance accountability and governance leadership. It's not because they don't want to, it's because they haven't been exposed to all of the fundamental elements that comprise an effective governance structure, an effective governance team, and how boards need to be able to function at an expert level, especially in today's environment with so much change and so much transformation and so much uncertainty. So our motivation was that we wanted to bring some instant resources to hospitals and health systems that if they were to acquire these resources over a period of time or from others would probably cost thousands of dollars more. And we wanted to make them simple, easy to access, affordable, and enable clients that have the capacity to create their own solutions if they only had a quick start. As Mary Klimp referred to it, she sees it as a consultant in a box, and I guess that's essentially what it is. The bottom line for us had to do with our mission, and our mission is to advance better health care through smarter governance. We really believe that GovernWell can help organizations build and sustain smarter governance. We think it can help boards reduce their governance risk and prepare their governance for greater success in this rapidly transforming healthcare world.
It's exciting to see what you've put together, Larry, and it makes a lot of sense that you're helping not only make good information available, but make it available in a way that is digestible and easy to access. As we look at slide 7, this is the brochure that is introducing this new resource, Essentials for Governing Excellence. We're excited to see this as a new resource for enhanced board work, just as Larry has described. Another question, though, Larry, is as I've gone through this resource, I see that you've included video clips. You've got over almost 3,000 pages of resources, sample guides for committees and board members as individuals and the collective board. I wonder if you could take just a moment and help us understand how these modules are evolving and how they might be used. I know, for example, you have one that's dealing with helping boards prepare for mergers or alliances. And could you spend just a moment and talk a little bit about how this tool can be useful for that challenge of mergers or strategic alliances?
Sure. Well, let me first of all preface my answer by explaining that the way we see GovernWell is we see it as a comprehensive governance toolkit. As you said, Jim, it has 11 different modules, and each one of those modules has a broad range of customizable information, customizable forms, tools, and resources that hospitals can put together immediately to address any governance gaps that may exist. I'm amazed as I travel around the country and I talk to trustees in presentation settings as well as individually, how many don't have fundamental things as simple as a board member job description or a comprehensive description of the role of management versus the governing board. Meaningful committee charters that lay out the scope of work for committees, their responsibilities, accountabilities, reporting requirements, goals, and connection to the hospital's overall strategic direction. Many are still thinking about governance recruitment as just finding an individual board member to replace another board member, as opposed to thinking about governance succession planning, looking out into the future at what the future may hold for the organization and what kinds of skills and experience and expertise and competencies that board members may need. Many don't receive periodic and continuing education. They don't do annual board self-assessments. They don't have all the policies required by the IRS Form 990 and Schedule H and other necessary policies. And these are all fundamental things that every board should have. We just wanted to make it really easy for boards to customize their governance accountabilities and customize their governance leadership by using these resources for a really quick start. So you mentioned affiliation or merger as an example. We know that affiliations of a whole broad range of types are forming or are at least under consideration by just about every healthcare organization out there. They're either thinking about it or they've been approached by someone to consider an affiliation. Independents are looking for partners because of needs for access to capital, facilities improvement, recruitment, and a variety of other reasons, but mostly to enable them to have a better ability to achieve their mission and vision. And then we have smaller systems that are joining larger systems. So we developed the Affiliate Well module to, based on some actual projects that we've done with hospitals that were in a position to say, what direction are we going to go in and when? To me, an effective process is a lot more than just putting together an RFP and hoping to find a partner. You really need a plan. You need to involve employees and other stakeholders. You need to understand the options that are available and the advantages and disadvantages of different options. I think hospitals, as they prepare for any kind of a conversation about affiliation, need to explore their program and service needs. They need to engage their physicians and payers and the business community and others in understanding what the real broad needs of the organization are in achieving its mission and vision, particularly looking out into the future and thinking about not only what's needed today, but what will be needed in the future. I think it's also important that affiliation or merger or whatever someone might want to call it, the principles and goals need to be established that everyone can agree to. And you really need to develop a strong case as a hospital or a small system for why you're a valuable partner. I see too many organizations go into affiliation discussions from a position of weakness, and everybody needs to be able to build that strong case and produce a package of information that helps make that case and understands the kinds of questions that a prospective partner will have. And then there's an opportunity to develop a really demanding and comprehensive RFP, one that requests for proposal, one that will enable the organization to see who really has a commitment to being a partner and what kinds of organizations have a culture that fits with the culture of the organization seeking a partner. So I think all of this sends a message about what kind of an organization you are, and it sets a high bar for anyone who may be looking at an acquisition or a merger or some kind of looser strategic affiliation. AssessWell includes tools to help a hospital with all of those things. In fact, one of our clients told me that the Affiliate Well module alone, because that was high on their radar screen, that was the #1 thing in front of them, was worth far more than the cost all by itself, which was a nice thing to hear.
Yes, I agree, Larry. I've been very impressed going through just that one module, the number of checklists and guides and counsel and advisory insights that are very valuable for the chief executive, the C-suite folks, and the board itself. On slide 8, we've outlined just some of the topics that are addressed in this, and that leads me to be curious about how this new resource can be used for ongoing education and orientation of these board members. Sometimes the CEO, the Chief Human Resource Officer, they're stumbling around looking for resources that can be used to educate and to quickly find things that can be tailored and customized to their unique community or their unique organization. I wonder if you look at slide 8, and we'll go to slide 9 as well, to talk about some of the uses of this. You've mentioned learn well, assess well, recruit well, lead well. Just as it relates to the learning and education process, how have you found these materials to be most useful for your clients?
You know, Jim, Learn Well is the most robust component of GovernWell. It has more information, more programs, more resources for boards than any other aspect of the toolkit. We've included 13 different pre-recorded programs on a variety of fundamental boardroom basic topics, like what is the board's role in quality and patient safety? What does fiduciary accountability mean? Many times trustees have a loose concept of that, but they've never really talked about it, particularly from the standpoint of risk. We have programs on a whole host of boardroom basic type topics, but we've supplemented that with over 50 what we call board briefs. They're 3 to 6 page documents that focus on a particular area, like ensuring conflict-free governance, succession planning for tomorrow's trustee leaders, what trustees need to know about governance risk, advocacy, all just a variety of different topics. We also recognize that some hospitals may want, and boards may want to use these resources to create their own presentations by supplementing the slides with their own information. For example, if you're doing a presentation to the board on the board's role in quality and patient safety and trends in quality and patient safety, a hospital may want to add in information from their quality dashboard. They may want to put some information in about their quality improvement process. So we included the original PowerPoints along with presentation talking points for each slide to enable someone to custom create their own presentation from those materials. Everything that's in LearnWell, to me, could be a huge component as a part of a new board member orientation process. We also include a document in there called Questions Every Board Member Needs to Know the Answers to. It's about a 130-page document broken down into about 23 different components, and we found clients say that that is one of the best orientation resources that they've ever had. So all of this stuff is instantly available and really easy to use. And I think the key, though, getting back to an earlier point that you made, is when you look at everything that's in GovernWell, it can be almost overwhelming. There's so much there. And I think the key is to examine what's there, and then for every board to say, what are our key priorities? If a board self-assessment is high on our radar screen right now, then AssessWell is a good tool to use. If affiliation is one, then AffiliateWell would be one. If we really need to conduct a governance education at every board meeting, then LearnWell would be a really good tool to focus on. So, you know, the tools themselves need to be custom applied based on every organization's individual circumstance.
I like that element of it, Larry, and not only that it's on the shelf, if you will, figuratively and literally for the chief executive and the board members to use, but I like it that it's available in the PowerPoint format, in Word files, so that you can easily not only customize the words, but put your logos onto it and save time and still enable that very tight focus that you talked about. It's a useful and very valuable dimension of this resource.
The thing that we tell our clients, Jim, is that we don't expect anybody to just take these documents as is and place their name in it and call it a day. We expect that they will consider that these materials and documents maybe get them 90% of the way there, and especially the governance policies in the module that includes all of the 26 sample governance policies. We would expect that boards and their general counsel, perhaps their governance committee, would examine those policies, would edit them appropriately to suit their particular needs and expectations, and would then, as a board, discuss those policies and ensure that everyone is on board with them. So, you know, but it just, the whole idea behind it is to save a hospital time, save money, and speed the governance improvement process.
It makes a lot of sense, Larry. Thank you. As we get near the end of the time on this brief webinar, one of the challenges that we see when we started this webinar was the oversight that's occurring from a wide variety of regulators. And so there's more risk in the work of the members of boards, regardless of the size and scale of their operation. We even know that the Yates memo is often talked about, issued by the Department of Justice, that board members might be held individually liable if they stumble into some inappropriate decision-making. And so there's risk involved, and we see one of the reasons we're excited about this new product and program is that, as you see on slide 12, the 11 components can help be a part of the risk mitigation strategies. I wonder if you could just make a few brief comments near the end of our webinar about how you see GovernWell being helpful to these boards and the executive teams to look at risk and to mitigate against or to reduce some of those challenges.
Sure. Well, from my perspective, there may be more, but there are at least 4 levels of risk that every board has. There's leadership risk, making sure that you have the right people in place at the right time. There's the legal risk that you just referred to. There's certainly financial risk, but equally important, I think, is reputational risk. Public trust and confidence is absolutely vital and critical to every hospital in the country. And GovernWell, I think, provides all, if not most, of the tools that, if they're fully employed in the right way at the right time, can really help minimize the risk that an organization has, because we know that a highly knowledgeable board that has the right infrastructure and the right commitment and the right people that want to be an expert board, not just a competent board, but a truly expert board at everything they do, whether they're a critical access hospital or a large healthcare system. I think that should be the standard that boards should expect to hold themselves to. They should have highly experienced and skilled, knowledgeable trustees that are really committed to what I call continuous governance improvement, where good is never good enough, and there's always a way to get better, to look at governance the same way hospitals and health systems look at quality. There's always something else you can do. There's a tweak you can make. There's a change you can make to continually get better at everything you do. And I think if organizations do that, then they're going to naturally minimize a lot of that risk. The one question that no board member ever wants to have to answer if there is any kind of an OIG investigation or an IRS investigation or even allegations in the press about mismanagement or lack of governance oversight, the one question nobody ever wants to have to answer is, where was the board in all of this? And by using these tools, I think the board can have at least the satisfaction among itself that we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that we're providing that high-level leadership that our community, our employees, our physicians, our partners expect from us.
Thank you very much, Larry. I like that theme of continuous governance enhancement. We've looked carefully at the resources you've assembled. We love them. We're already getting indication from boards that are finding creative and sensible and practical ways to use them. We've now collaborated with Larry Walker and the Walker Company to establish some new initiatives. We're going to be building in some web-based learning and on-site training that takes advantage of these materials and moves them into something we will be referring to as Gallagher GovernWell Academy. We'll be doing some webinars later in August about this, but I would like to talk about 3 initiatives that we've found are going to be added in, new modules that will be helpful in this journey to build on GovernWell with on-site training into the Gallagher GovernWell Academies. The 3 modules that we will be developing and will be made available in August. One is called Respond Well. Larry very appropriately mentioned the question you don't want to have answered or asked is the challenge of where was the board? And increasingly we're starting to see boards need an organized policy and process of how they will respond to crisis. And so Respond Well will have a series of guides and checklists and some video clips that look at how boards can be better prepared to deal with crisis communications. Another component that we'll be adding in is Pay Well. Increasingly, some of the challenges that boards are having to deal with is a misstep that was made on physician contracting or compensating clinicians as they deliver care or physicians that are moving into medical leadership roles. And there needs to be policies and procedures and checklists on how to do that oversight function of compensation for both physicians as well as executives. So that will be another component that will be rolled out. And finally, Innovate Well. How does the board continuously, as Larry very appropriately acknowledged, stay fresh and continually examine what they do and how they do it, and continually look at innovating in the processes of governance, just like we want our organizations to innovate in the processes of clinical decision making. So we're excited with what Larry has put together. Our new collaboration will be bringing into critical access hospitals, community hospitals, even some of the new integrated systems that are evolving to accountable care organizations, as well as academic medical centers, some new structure, some new resources that can be beneficial for them as they move forward on this journey into population health management and into accountable care. We're excited with this new collaboration because we do think it represents new resources for enhanced board work. I think you'll see from the very useful comments that Larry has shared with us, this is a comprehensive resource. It is customizable, and it is very easy to use and easy to access. We want to complete our remarks now. We know that we're already seeing that there may be some questions coming in from participants and listeners on the webinar. We have just a few minutes left, but I'd like to have a chance to see Robin if you've got some questions that we should be trying to pay attention to.
Okay, thank you. We do have a couple of questions. We can start with the first one that would go to both Larry and then to you, Jim. You have worked with many types of hospitals. What are some of the board challenges for the larger hospital systems as they try to be more integrated with their physicians and with long-term care organizations?
Jim, you want to go first?
Sure, I will, and then you can jump in as well. It's a good question, and one of the things we see in the journey to population health is that for the first time, boards have to have conversations and develop coordinated plans and to really govern across organizations that they don't own or control. And by that I mean long-term care organizations, federally qualified health centers, local boards of health, new kinds of ambulatory initiatives, new advocates or consumer groups that have a particular focus on certain diseases, the health spas, healthy lifestyle organizations. If we're going to be serious about a coordinated delivery system that really enhances health gain and not just health care, boards have to be prepared to work with a wide variety of other organizations. And I think, frankly, some of the materials and resources of GovernWell and the new expansions that Gallagher will be adding to that will help this collaborative or cooperative governance be more likely to be disciplined and effective. Larry, how do you see this evolution, some of the challenges of the new continuum?
Well, I would agree with what you just said, Jim. I think it's really important that boards understand what is driving the need for greater integration, whether it's among physicians, long-term care organizations, other partners in the community. I noted that one of your five-part series has to do with collaborative governance, and this is a trend that I know you're seeing, that I'm seeing around the country. Foster McGaugh Prize winners are the Foster McGaugh Prize is a prize given by the American Hospital Association every year to an organization that demonstrates excellence in community service and community collaborations. You know, sometimes this whole notion of integration with physicians, long-term care organizations, and others is just a starting point, and integration in other ways with a broad range of community stakeholders is going to become increasingly important, particularly as hospitals and health systems are paid to improve the population of communities and are paid more for delivering on the triple aim. So I think another challenge is just to explore the opportunity for how better to deliver on the mission of the organization. Many organizational hospital and health system missions are very hospital-centric and hospital-driven, and or they talk about things like improving the health of the community and the people we serve, but hospitals alone can't do that. So the challenges really, I think, have a lot to do with blending multiple cultures and oftentimes conflicting cultures into a real seamless whole where we can ensure that everybody is at least on the same mission page. How that mission gets carried out may be different for different partners, but the culture has to be one of improving community health, improving community service, improving quality, improving safety, spending less, and ensuring that everybody feels that they have a real integral role to play in that seamless whole.
I agree, Larry. That's wise counsel, and you and I have seen some of that up in Canada, where we did some work in Ontario as they're looking at governance collaboration and collaborative governance. Let's go to another question.
Okay, thank you. This next one is for you, Larry. Our hospital association has mentioned your work in GovernWell. Could you explain how our critical access hospital could use this material for a board retreat later this year?
Oh, there are so many ways, Robin, that GovernWell could be used in a board retreat, depending upon the goals of the retreat, the length of the retreat, and what the outcomes are expected to be. But let's assume it's a typical board retreat around looking at the vision of the organization and its current situation and identifying some strategies for moving forward. Number one, the whole segment of GovernWell called RetreatWell has a whole bunch of materials that could be used and customized to get a fast start on planning the retreat. It includes fundamental things that oftentimes don't get done. Things like a sample agenda, retreat evaluation, something as simple as a format for putting name tents together. So if you have a facilitator for the retreat, that facilitator is able to remember who's who and who does what within the organization. Any of the materials that would be relevant to a retreat that are included in LearnWell. Let's say one of the things that the board is going to talk about is an affiliation. Well, they would want to look at Affiliate Well and maybe have some of those materials available. They'd want to look at the board brief on, is there an affiliation in your future? Provide that information in advance to board members, maybe at the board meeting prior to the retreat, to get people thinking about it. We have a tool in RetreatWell for surveying board members in advance of the retreat. And as someone who's facilitated a lot of hospital retreats, that's something that we have typically done, is to issue a web-based or a printed survey that asks questions about what do you see as the primary challenges ahead for the organization. We will include various items to be rated and ranked, and the whole point there is to develop as much intelligence as possible in advance of the retreat, so you're not starting with a blank page, but you're actually starting with a board-wide and typically including members of the medical staff and the senior leadership team, an organization-wide look at where the organization is, what its challenges are, and what's ahead. RetreatWell includes resources for doing all of that. And again, it's not everything that an organization would need, but there's a lot there that can really give a head start on planning and executing a really high-performance retreat.
Okay, thank you. The next question we have says that we're hearing a lot about whistleblower lawsuits that might name board members because of some questionable contracts with physicians. What should boards do to minimize this risk?
Well, Jim, I'm going to throw that to you.
Yeah, thank you. It is a complicated issue. If we think of how boards can take actions to using the language of public health, inoculate the organization from some of the risks or the bad or untoward consequences or costs of these risks, that might give us a mental framework to think of how best to respond to that question. I think boards would be wise to use a three-pronged approach. It is a big issue, and the first would be to periodically, 2 or 3 times a year, ask the executive team, the legal counsel, the compliance officers, to educate the board and remind them about what a whistleblower risk is. A lot of it is related to the fraud and abuse challenges, improper billing or collections or improper payment to physicians, where individual employees or physicians could become concerned and surface this whistleblower issue. I was recently at a conference in Washington, D.C., where this was identified as a big issue, and half of the work of the Department of Justice is related to healthcare activities. So I think it's very important. The first of the three I would suggest, Robin and Larry, is the education. Educate the board about the risks, about the consequences of this. The second of three probably is to make sure that they not only establish a discipline policy framework that guards against the challenges of improper billing or improper payment to the physicians. And this policy framework should deal with billing, with contracting, making sure there's fair market value compensation for physicians that are both wearing a hat as a medical manager as well as a care provider. So you need a policy framework, a statement of philosophy that clearly demonstrates this is something that won't be tolerated and will, every time you meet, be an opportunity to guard against it or to monitor or to check what's happening. So the first two are education, the second policy framework, and third probably would be at every meeting, board members should ask, are there any risks or challenges that have surfaced over the last month or the last quarter that might get us in trouble with regard to whistleblowers or improper billing or payments. And so this, the art of asking wise questions gives the board and the management team an opportunity to surface at least 2, 3, 4 times a year a review of how are things going and what we could do to better prepare ourselves for those potential risks. Those aren't going to go away. We're going to see more of those, and they are large, large risks. We've all followed some of these that are $240 million claims. If you're really diligent about trying to step in and fix that, maybe you can reduce that down to $60 million, but the key is to guard against those from even occurring at the beginning or to begin with. So
now, Jim, I might mention that there are 3 specific board briefs included in LearnWell that would help a board understand a little bit more about this topic. One is called Governance Risk, What Trustees Need to Know. Another is called Hospital Billing and Collections, The Scrutiny Isn't Going Away. And a third is called, on a different topic, but it still has to do with risk, Protecting Your Hospital's Confidential Patient Information, What Trustees Need to Know About Cybersecurity. In addition, the American Health Lawyers and the OIG put out a paper a while back on what they termed quality fraud, which is a liability that boards would have in the event that they are reporting inaccurate information about quality on Hospital Compare, the CMS website, and if they're being paid for care that is inadequate and that is not up to what they claim it is, according to the American Health Lawyers Association and the OIG, organizations can be held to that quality fraud standard. And there's some really good information from the American Health Lawyers Association that's accessible online about that very topic.
Okay, thank you. Do either of you, Larry or Jim, have any closing comments you would like to make before we conclude this webinar today?
I'd just like to thank Larry and his organization for building this new resource, and we're very excited with our new collaboration with him and the new elements that we're adding into that to bring out to hospitals and health systems of all sizes this new resource. We're looking forward to it. It's going to help hospitals be better prepared for this era of accountable care and of population health management. And as we saw on the title screen, it's likely then that boards are going to be able to practice smart governance that is stakeholder engaged, mission-driven, accountability expected, and resource mobilized and transparency enabled. So thank you again, Robin, for helping organize the webinar. And Larry, thanks so much for all that you're doing to strengthen the governance of health systems in this country.
Thank you.
Okay, please look forward to any of our follow-up emails that might include today's materials for you, as well as information on receiving the latest white paper from the Governance Institute. And that will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.